The scrap metal recycling industry has always run on hustle, trust, and sharp instincts. This is the podcast for traders and operators who want to get sharper without losing their scrappy edge. I'm Stu Kagan, bringing you insights and stories from the people shaping the future of our industry. This is Born Scrappy. Welcome to Born Scrappy Live, ReMA 2026. Super exciting. I do have two of my favorite people in global metal recycling, straight out of Canada, one of the largest metal recycling companies in the whole of Canada. Really excited to have Jonathan Ross and Alex Ross joining us here today. So thanks for joining us, guys.
Oh, it's great for having us. Great to be here, Stu. Great to be here as always.
I just want to confirm quickly, Alex, this is your first time coming out, so people have the opportunity to learn a bit about you. Is that right?
This is my second ReMA conference.
Sorry.
San Diego's my first one.
First time on stage, first
San
time
Diego.
speaking.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm really excited because, John, we've had so many conversations, about what you went through coming in as the next generation, and you're passing on the baton to Alex, but you've been through it all before. So for me, I think to put some context around this, like when you go back to when you were Alex, when you were getting started and your dad was kind of like training you, what kind of went through your head in that stage? And what were you thinking when you were 22 years old?
Well, I was thinking what an opportunity I have ahead of me because going into it was a much smaller operation back then as well. We were more hands-on. So there was a lot of coming out of university and you're into the yard, you're doing everything at that stage. So what I was thinking about when I first came on was, like the opportunity that he's giving me. And it was a lot of pressure because of that, but I wanted to learn from him too. My father was very well known in the industry, very well known at these conferences. We walked the floor, everybody knew him. And that was impressive to me. And I wanted to emulate that, as I moved on. But the knowledge and the interactions that he had with people from the industry, from his generation, was something that I really looked up to when I first came on. And so I felt a lot of pressure because of that. How am I going to fill the shoes? Even though he didn't have a lot of education, he was extremely bright in the industry. And the industry is a very unique and sophisticated industry. So I felt that there was a lot of big shoes to fill coming in.
Well, it's an amazing industry, but it's such an interesting conversation is because you just touch on how highly educated were people in the previous generation, and it just carries on progressing, and they're getting more and more educated and coming in with a whole new way of looking at things. 100%. So Alex, when did you first realize that this wasn't just your dad's business or your grandfather's? This is something that was really going to be your path.
Yeah, I think, coming in the scrapyard and working my weekends and my school breaks, but I was 12 when I started actually running forklifts and then material handlers and tractor trailers and with a Ross issued license. But I kind of realized, it was probably 16 or 17 when I understood the opportunity that I had and to work with my father and my grandfather with that great mentorship that's just once in a lifetime. And those people in this life don't have that opportunity. So I kind of realized I had to seize that opportunity. So I'd say around 16, 17, was more than just an equipment operator.
When I've spoken to your dad, he always talks about bringing you in at 12 and making you do the hard yards. And I think we'll touch on that a little bit because, I started when I was 18 and I know all about having to do the hard yards. You really can't get to where you are now without having done a level of it. I think times are changing. Of how much time you spend in the yard, mainly because you come out with an education, so you have a different aspect to you, which is maybe the earlier generations didn't have. They had to maybe spend more time in the yard, but it's still so vital to have that training in the yard. And if you can start at 12, well, it just sets you up to be 25-year-old CEO, hey John? Maybe not 25.
No, but listen, I agree with that though. But we have a different philosophy though, because at our operations and with Alex and the son and my expectations from my father, the younger generations always want to have things happen yesterday. Just every generation has that. But what we've really pushed for a lot of the people, including Alex, who's no exception, whether he was an employee like any other employee, was to put him out in the yard, and he had to learn, like my background being law, the articling that I had to do, and going into the different parts of law, whether it was corporate, criminal, you learn different divisions of law. It's no different than our industry. And it was extremely important that Alex would go into the yard, and he would start in the yard, literally learning how to sort. Sweeping was the big, that was like, once you graduated from sweeping, you were like, it was over, you were a hero. And then from there, you progressed into the office and learning the logistics, working with the logistics team. And then from there, you're learning in the sales team and learning all the buys and sells and dealing with the customers and the pricing and the complexity of, with us in Canada, the currency conversions and the world market commodities and the discounts and putting all those into play. So that's a big thing for us. We've even had, again, no different because he's my son, but we put even our traders in the yards. They have to stay, and that's a big test for us too, because you're bringing in a new generation coming in, and the guys and girls that want to work in the yards, okay, they'll stay in the yards and really learn the trade and the metals and stuff too. Those are people that turn out to be very successful for us in our operations.
Look, we could speak about this all hour, and we could do a whole bunch more hours. So I'm going to carry on. But I wrote a couple of chapters on my latest book about this in particular. Like, I do believe strongly we have to have time in the yard, but there is also opportunities to bring people into certain fields. Maybe they're not the next generation in your family, but like if you're hiring a logistics person, if he was trained in logistics, he doesn't necessarily have to spend 5 years in a yard. There is opportunities for people to come into our industry. It's an incredible industry. We need to source more people direct out of college and maybe from other industries as well. So I think there's two sides of that. I want to ask you, John, when you look at Alex, and this might be awkward, but when you look at Alex, what do you see in Alex? Is he like a different animal to you when you were that age? Or is he exactly the same and you see yourself?
No, we're talking about generations again, and each generation is supposed to be smarter than the next. Well, this is a perfect example here. Just because he's my son, I'm trying not to be biased about it, but Alex is a unique individual, always has been as a little child. Like when we would task him with something to do as a child, he would do it 1,000%, not 100%, 1,000%. And he was very keen to do things. And that has transformed into his joining our business and the stuff that we've tasked him to do in our business. It's been phenomenal working with him. It's been phenomenal with his talent and his ability. So I think between my father, myself, and now Alice, I really believe that he's got a lot better acumen at this business than we do, looking back at the past.
No pressure. I'm glad you didn't say, because you said, they say the next generation's always going to be smarter. I'm glad you didn't say, well, this one's an exception. That would have been
I would have been beaten by somebody else in the crowd.
I hope not.
Alex, I guess to you, I want to know, did you ever doubt that you were coming into this industry? Were you at college or in school and going like, no, I want to be a rocket scientist or something different?
I would say as I got older, it was more the realization that I definitely wanted to do it. It wasn't like at one point I actually said, oh no, I actually don't want to do this. But no, I would say I'm full on into it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And John, I guess the answer to this is obvious, but did you ever feel that you had to kind of persuade him or start to go, you're coming into this business when you're finished? Or was it more the drive from him?
No, Stu, I would never put that pressure on my children to do that. I wouldn't want that for me. I never had that pressure either. Just to clarify one thing though too, this is 5th generation sitting next to me right here. That's 5th generation of companies that don't make it past 2nd and 3rd generation. So that's a testament to the fact that, we have this love for the industry, that we've come in without being pressured. Because I believe that if he was pressured, if my other son was pressured, and they're not interested in the business, there's going to be a lot more negativity. It's going to be a lot harder to be more successful, to grow, and to keep growing. So no pressure at all on him. This is all just organically wanting to be in the business.
Over the last year, I've probably met Alex maybe 5 or 6 times.
Yeah.
And I know for a fact that that's very true. Like, I haven't met somebody your age as hungry as you. I hired a guy who was really hungry. And I actually said to him, I said, the only person I can compare you to is Alex Ross. That's a true story.
That's
and just so you know, and anybody who's listening, I've had John on my podcast before. And for this one live, I said, you have to bring Alex. I think it's time. Alex started introducing himself. He's going to be here for a very long time. So I just wanted to clarify, this isn't like a bring your child to school day.
Bring your kid to work. Bring your kid to work.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's exactly. It's different in South Africa, New Zealand. Child to school, same thing. How hard is it being a father and son? You guys got a big operation. There's got to be times where it's like, no, we're not doing that, or can you stop talking right now? You're embarrassing me. What's it like?
I think we complement each other a lot more than we fight, and but if we have disagreements, we're pretty good about coming up with the pros and cons to make it the right decision. But I'm thankful for the relationship I have with my dad, that we can really put our heads together, and I think for the most part make the right decision. And if we make the wrong decision, then that we can fix it quickly.
My father-in-law says, make a decision and make it right.
Yeah.
So even if it was the wrong one, you just pivot and make it right.
Exactly. That's right. Yeah, I like that.
And you, John?
No, we get along well. Alex, again, I'll use his words. We have a good synergy together. Listen, I mean, the filters are dropped in a family business, no question, right? It's not the same as just an employee that's unrelated to the company. And when the filters are dropped, things can get said a little bit more freer. But at the end of the day, what we do really well at is that we don't walk away from each other mad. We walk back into the room, and he points out things that I've messed up. And he'll listen to what I have to say as well on things that he needs to sharpen up with. But at the end of the day, by working closely together, we're very lucky in the sense that it is a unique situation that we do have a very good synergy together.
Yeah, and I recognize the experience and the time that my dad's been in the business, so I try and listen. When he tells me something, there's usually a reason for it. So.
Yeah, that's vital. I think it's vital that you understand each other's strengths and weaknesses. As you guys know, I work with my wife. Now that's intense. It's been 7 years now. I'm actually only 20 years old, but I look a bit older because it's 7 years I've been working with my wife. No, the truth is, as long as you know each other's strengths and weaknesses, and you are able to have a discussion, a debate, and it can even get heated, and actually come through that and still be comfortable, it's so vitally important. And I think the one thing that's the most important thing I always did, we employed 4,200 people. And one of the first things in any conversation I had with somebody where there was an issue was, what is the person's intention? And when you're going in different directions, it's harder to have a debate and come out on the other side and feel that, okay, we've come up with the right solution. When you are father and son in a business that you both want the same thing, there is no doubt. You're not rowing your own canoe. You're not rowing your own canoe. You guys are in it for this. It's easier to have those heated debates because you're just saying, this is my opinion. This is what I believe. I want the same thing you do. And my wife and I are exactly like that. Like, we both want the same thing for our family. We want the same thing for our business. So it makes it easier. And I think when people look from the outside in, they're like, wow, that must be hard because I have fights with my boss all the time. The difference is sometimes your boss is playing the political game and trying to do something else that isn't necessarily what's best for the company.
I agree with that 100%. Yeah. We have my wife, everybody's in the business with us, right? So, and we're all rowing in the same direction. That is very true. And that is the common goal. That is the common goal.
John, have you ever been absolutely right about something and maybe he was wrong or vice versa? Is there any time like there's been a discussion and another one turned around and said, you actually made the right call here?
Oh, I think it happens. It happens. It happens often.
Can you think of an example where you push the other way?
I've seen it where we have, sometimes we have different judge on character of people. So in interviews, we look at, is this person gonna fit well with our team? Are they gonna help us move forward or not? And there's been a few times when I've noticed some subtleties or some habits in the person that I didn't like, and my dad didn't see it right away. But then, when we found out later on where those people had gone, it was the right decision. I said, "I told you so."
So not only does it happen, but you rub it in too.
Yeah, that's all part of it. I gotta take my wins, but it happens the other way too. I mean, I'm wrong about things too.
Yeah, listen. I mean, every day, hundreds of decisions are being made. So there's going to be ones that we're going to drop the ball on. But the bigger picture usually gets thought out more, so you're not going to have that many mistakes. And you're hopefully not going to have that many mistakes. But it's the day-to-day operations. It's the minute-by-minute decisions that we have to make. And again, make a decision. You make what your father-in-law said to you. You make a decision. It's always going to be right. Right? Yeah, right.
I didn't think when I was thinking of the questions, about these decision making. Hiring people and keeping people must be really hard because there's emotions involved when it's people. You know, I know people get very emotional about metal sometimes, but when it's people, there's, you know, this person's been with us for 20 years, you know, and somebody else is like, well, yeah, but are they still the right person for this job? And that must be quite intense when it's people.
Yeah, I mean, we have a way of doing things and attitude for us, and we've seen over the years where people that just couldn't row with us, row in the same direction, and their attitude was really poor, but they've been there for a long time, and we're here to be good operators and do a good job. And if people are going to have a bad attitude towards that, then they're not going to stay with the team.
You know, there's been people along the way too where I've seen that we shouldn't rush to remove from the operations because there's certain things, and sometimes that would be, let's say, a disagreement between us. Well, no, this, you know, very passionate, he's got to go or she's got to go because, and then sometimes what happens is the light comes on, you get to start to spend some more time with those individuals, and you start to realize that there's some positives behind those employees. You know, many years we've had that over the years.
Or they had to go right away.
Exactly.
Yeah. But we have a great team. I'm very fortunate. Our employees are team members, we call them. And they're really excellent. We have a lot of good people, and I think that's what makes us a great company is our team.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
What drives you crazy at work about your dad?
One crucial personality difference, I think it's probably related to my youth.
Let's do this one out.
Is that I want to do things immediately. I want to take action immediately. I want to make decisions, and I want to make a decision and then run with it. And you know, my dad, because he's seen so much, he likes to think things through a little longer. And sometimes my patience just runs out. Like I want to do it now. And so that drives me crazy sometimes, but I don't think that's a bad thing. I think it's good. It's like a yin and yang to balance each other out like that, because if I was making decisions too fast, and maybe they are being made too fast, but on the other hand, I do want to make decisions faster. So yeah.
Look, there's a happy medium there. Like, I like the next generation and the hunger and the drive pushing. And no doubt there'll be times that your dad actually needs that, right? Because it's easy when you've been doing it for a long time, you have this big operation, to be slow to make change because all you see is the things that went wrong. And that's a hard thing to do when you've got the experience your dad does. But I think you don't stop. Don't stop that pushing.
Listen,
I don't think I stop.
I don't think you know.
I can't help myself.
You don't. You definitely do not stop. And you know what? I respect that though. That generation and the youth of it all, like wanting to make decisions quickly and wanting it now. Let's go. And that's, you're right. I agree. That's really important to have that, channel that energy. So we take that energy and we talk it out, and I just try to slow it down a little bit because, listen, again, one of the big things that we always instill in all of our managers and what's made us very successful is the fact that we let them make decisions now. Instead of micromanaging the old ways when we were a lot smaller and every little thing was micromanaged, we really, really give our managers now the ability. It's no different than with Alex too. Make decisions, but make sure that when you're making these decisions that, besides them being right, if there is a mistake made, because mistakes happen every day, that you know how to correct those decisions. I expect the same with him as well. So the slowing down a little bit also gives you a chance to say, okay, if I make this decision, what are the consequences of that decision? Exactly. And I want him to understand that a little bit better, you know, coming in, not guns a-blazing, just making decisions all over the place and having to correct things because it was too rushed.
The problem with that is, and why I like that they're making decisions, is because the only way to really learn is to fail. And if you overthink everything, you'll never make a decision. You'll never fail, and your business won't move anywhere. Make decisions, fail fast. I got the perfect example in my company. One guy on my sales team is in his early 40s, other one's in his early 20s. They're looking at a new system to capture customer information. And the guy in his early 40s is taking his time looking at what's the return on investment. And he knows that I'm going to be asking questions if this fails. And the other guy's like, oh, I found one, I'm ready to go. I looked it up, found it on Google. Well, I'll ChatGPT or Claude, and has the answer. And that only comes from having that experience of you spent the company's money, you did something, dad now wants to know what the heck happened, and you realize you hadn't spent your time. But I'll say again, it's really good to have that injection for you. And one day down the line there'll be more injection for you.
That's right. Like, don't get me wrong, though. A decision has to be made. We're not going to
Yeah.
hold on
Yeah.
forever either.
Analysis.
That's not my point. I agree with you.
Absolutely.
You can't get analysis paralysis.
Yeah.
And
We
no,
would-
no decision is also a poor decision.
I mean, the decision can be just buying a parcel, right? What's the price to pay? If that takes you too long, you can buy the parcel and went to somebody else. So
Right.
it seems, it's right on the top, it filters all the way down. I wanted to ask you guys, are you finding friends or people your age interested in joining you?
I am, yeah, I am. It's interesting the lack of knowledge people have about the industry. I think like people like you Stu do a great job explaining and really putting a positive spotlight on such a dynamic industry. Because I went to McGill University. I studied accounting and finance, and it was a very competitive talent pool. Everyone I was with, all my close friends were going to work in banking on Wall Street or Bay Street, or go work in private equity or whatever. And for me, it was just what are you doing? You're going to work in the scrap business. But once people understood it, we're the start and the end of the supply chain, and what the amount of opportunity there is, and they realize. And so I have a lot of friends in the industry. I'm thankful for that too. And I think there's a lot of talent that needs to be scouted out and brought into the industry.
That's a good point. So here's one thing about the next gen that the next gen son to a family business brings that I didn't see. And this is, I thought, was a really good example, and you touched upon it. The fact is, he's coming out with an accounting degree from a big university in Canada, and he told me, Dad, I have to tell you, you have to look at university degree people, even in finance. And I would have never really thought about that. I have 2 degrees, an undergrad and a law degree, but I would never have thought about it until he brought it to my attention that when you look at the industry, you look at where those guys are going to Wall Street and Bay Street and Toronto, you're dealing with, currency. Again, as I said, currencies, commodities, trading. You get to travel, international travel. You get to physically go into the warehouse to high touch. So he highlighted something to me that I never thought about. And because of that, we ended up hiring a very successful trader at the time, right out of the university, our first time ever. Because my thought was always to take somebody, you don't have to have as much education, we'll educate you. You're going to get somebody who has too much education coming in, and this is not going to be sexy enough for them, where they could be down in Wall Street making hundreds of thousands. But he showed me that, and that was a really good example of something that I've taken from the next gen that really works for us significantly.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, we got Jackie Losco here as well, who was the best young fighters, came through similar to you. Now leading the Canadian Recycling Association, Kerry, and it's just such a inspiration to be able to see the young people that come through, and then it's great to be able to show them and point to Jackie and point to other people. They go, hey, they were here too. Look at where they are now, right? You're not there yet, but to bring your team in, your friends in and go, but look, this person was once there and now is there. The opportunity is something that we don't show enough of. It's exactly what you said. We're in commodity trading, We're in finance, we're in logistics, we're in marketing. We do all of this. And it can be sexy if you take the departments. But if you take the whole industry, nobody thinks it is. So, yeah, I think it's really important we show them the progression.
Yeah, and again, being young and seeing those different things that we don't always see, that was a perfect example of something that Next Gen brings to the table. But this whole group, though, together, by the way, you speak about, friends in the industry, he's really developing a lot. Kerry, through Jacqueline, we're developing a lot of the Next Gen in our association. ReMA has it, of course. ReMA has a strong Next Gen. And there's a group of them that all know each other, all coming from family businesses or from some bigger industries that are not family businesses. And they all get together and they all talk to each other. And when they come together here, they're together. So I think it's nice to see the change of guards.
Look, I tell all the guys in the early 20s that get to these conventions and start making friends, because you've got 60 years of being surrounded by these people. So you better start liking them. All right? And, if you want to have your dinner card full for every conference, start making your friends now. Jonathan has no space for dinners because he's made so many friends over the years. And I don't doubt you'll be exactly the same. I wanted to ask you, John, when you brought Alex in, was there a documented process or an outline of how you were going to do things? It's your first kid coming in, or were you like, hey, you've been in the yard before, Alex, go join the yard and see how it goes.
I guess I want to say no. There was a thought process too, because of course I'm not going to bring him in and bring him right into the C-suite sort of situation, because that's going to set him up for failure. It's going to set everybody up for failure for transitioning. And one of the things that I've always been instilled by my father too is, how do you gain the respect? It's again, it's a simple answer. Gaining the respect is by being in the trenches with the employees and showing them that you're willing to roll up your sleeves, be a part of the operations. And that's something that Alex was very good at. Didn't question it. Didn't say, no, I want to be right in the office day one. Again, we were always taught being self-starters in terms of there was no real sort of formality of how we learned to do things. And it passed on to Alex in the sense that he jumped into a truck, learned to drive trucks in the yard, we moved material around our yard on a Saturday. That was the day that he would go in, very tight spaces, long trailers. He learned it himself, figured it all out himself. And then he'd get out of the truck and be helping cleaning, sorting, doing whatever he had to do to learn the business to do. And he gained a lot of respect. And so let's fast forward to today because of that respect. So the same employees that are still there, they know him. They don't look at him as the owner's son, because that is a very hard thing to sell. That is a very big target on your back when you're coming in as the owner's son. So what we did by him doing that is now he's taken over a couple of yards and helped transform the yards, like underperforming yards, and he would go in and change the dynamics of it. And they had a tremendous respect for him. And I was very, very impressed to watch him have that respect by our employees. So that's a huge thing that needs to happen. And I'm really proud of that.
I think if I was to kind of sum that up, it's all about earning respect early, right? And you got to earn the respect. You can't be given respect from your father. You can't be like, everybody now respect this young guy. He's going to now one day take over the company. He's got to be earned. You've got to go join everybody else and do that actual work. And when you start having an impact, that's when people respect you. You go take over a small yard, and all of a sudden the yard floor is clean. Everybody's experience is better. Customers are all of a sudden saying how much more they enjoy their yard because they come through, they're in and out quickly, prices are better, whatever it might be, it's making more money. That's when everybody else turns on and go, wow, this guy's actually going to be really good for us.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's all those things, and it's really satisfying to see that progression and see that positive impact. And it's a ground up approach. Right?
When you walk into those yards, you're not walking in nose in the air, boss's son. You are walking in. You're saying good morning to everybody. How was your weekend? That's one thing. And I've had a lot of reports back from our managers on how respectful he is to the employees and how nice it is to be working with them. So again, testament to you and your personality, testament maybe to the family and the family business. But I think that's really, really critical because again, that is where you're either going to win or lose. And if you don't gain that respect early, to your point, it's going to be a real uphill battle for the company to transition.
I agree.
George Adams says, and I've heard him say it a few times now, you work for your employees. And if you go in with that attitude, and when you walk into the yard and you're actually asking for how things going, what have you learned, what can we do better? Where they feel that you actually are working for them and trying to help them, that attitude changes completely.
No, I absolutely agree with that statement. George's a smart guy, so
that's
one of the many smart things.
I've had a lot of conversations with him, and his synergies and our synergies are very aligned that way, for sure.
Yeah, that's awesome. Alex, what was the hardest skill you learned?
It goes back to patience. Like honestly, that is a tough skill for me to learn. Like it's counter to my personality of wanting to act fast, and so my dad's really shown me the importance of being patient, and things take time, and sometimes things shouldn't take time, but people don't answer emails outside of our organization. That slows us down, or they don't answer the phone, or things that are out of our control. But just learning to control the things that I can control, and then relaxing on the other things. And, hopefully there's a little bit of nudge, it'll work itself out. So.
You're 22, right?
Yeah.
That's pretty wise. I think one of the most important things I probably only learned in my 40s, which was just the other day, okay, I'm just saying, I haven't been in there for that long.
I'm the same boat.
Exactly. I'm in my 30s. Was the ability to worry about what you can control and you can't, right? Like if I know that I can't control this, that's the only thing I should focus on. Everything else goes in the side or rear view mirror, and I worry about that at a later stage. Has that been dealt with? Has somebody handled that? But if it's out of my control, I move on and I don't harp on those things.
Absolutely. No, I agree with that.
Yeah, it's good.
Well, that takes skill, though. It takes some, discipline and skill to get through that.
And then on a really practical level, learning the ins and outs of a shredding plant has also been very eye-opening for me. I spend most of my time in our steel yard and with our shredder operations, and I feel like I've come a long way from what I knew as a kid, not really working with the shredder at all to now. And it's fascinating the technology coming down the line and what's already been invented by a lot of talented engineers. So,
John, I know it wasn't that long ago because you're so super young that
Thank you. I know, exactly.
you were taking over from your
Yeah,
dad,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Just the other day. What do you wish someone had told you when you were his age? And have you told him that?
You know, that's a tough question. I don't know because I've always been naturally just born to just run with something. Firstborn, I don't know, just because I'm firstborn. He's firstborn. There seems to be a lot of natural.
I'm
abilities
second born.
to
All of a sudden, I feel like I'm judged.
Oh, yeah. No, I'm just gonna say
Should I
that's,
leave?
yeah. Well, it's another conversation. No, but I think there's not a lot because again, we've never had like there's always pressures. You're now taking over. There's the financial. Listen, you're looking after 500 employees and their families. I feel the weight of that responsibility every day when I walk into work.
Did your dad give you a speech? Was there now what you just said right now?
No.
Did you have that? Have
No.
you done that with Alex?
No, I did not give
That's
out
not
that
our
speech.
style.
That isn't our style.
yeah, just
Did
that.
you wish you were told that? That's
Well-
not something you're going to tell Alex.
Listen, I mean, it is what it is. We're here. We are where we are today. I guess we've been given a great opportunity from my father to be able to take this company and really scale it. And I'm very proud of what we've been able to do from what he started. Again, fifth generation. So go back to my grandfather and great grandfather. It was a very small mom and pop operation. But my father, he did the best he could. He worked very hard at it. And he gave us freedom with a long rope to figure it out. So
Okay.
I don't really look at that as the.
Your lovely wife is sitting in the
Yeah.
crowd, ReMA. I would ask her if she was sitting up here. But and I know she's in the business. How do you guys separate the boardroom table versus the dinner table? Like, is home just what volume did we buy today? And what are the margins? Like, if somebody else, you don't separate.
No,
If
there
somebody
is
was
no
sitting there-
separation of church and state. There is definitely no separation. No, we do not separate. And you know what? It's fine. There are people, I do know lots of big family businesses, and they have rules around the table when they come in. That the matriarch always says, we are not discussing business tonight at the table. That is not what happens at our home.
You don't have enough hours in the day to afford that.
Right. But this is your time
In
to
order
be.
to watch
It
it
is.
because it's a quiet time of the day. So.
Can I tell you something, Stu, though? It's not a bad thing that we're talking about, in our opinion. We find that we're away from the distraction of the day-to-day business and the multiple things that are going on every day. And what I find is that we can actually think a little more clearly by sitting at home around the dinner table to discuss issues that we can't talk about because every 10 minutes you're being interrupted. I just find it's a chance for us to focus a little bit more. And then also, we're not always all together in the business every day in the same room, right? So now it's almost like a boardroom. We're bringing everybody into the same room now, and we're working with each other. So if I have a problem or something's happening, Renee or Alex or my father, anybody has problems, we kind of present it to discuss and figure out how are we going to work together to overcome that issue. Or the successes. It's not always issues. There's also the successes. Hey, this happened today. It's unreal. We really, we
Not to mention, for me, it's a passion. For my dad, it's a passion. So it's not like it's something that we don't like to talk about.
Right.
For the most part, it's always good problems to have or things that we can discuss in peace and figure out.
I mean, we experience this at home. Lisa's laughing in the background there. Lisa grew up in the same environment, entrepreneurial family, and they used to always say their dinner table is the board table. What's interesting is that not only have you guys decided to not separate that, you actually find it strategically positive to have feedback, meet around the table, and it's actually beneficial.
Yeah, we find the benefits of it, exactly. And you know what? It's not something that bothers us because some people do have issues, but it just doesn't end. We're always on when it comes to business. But it's what we like.
Yeah.
It's actually what we like.
It's what you enjoy. We're the exact same. Like I've worked with these for 7 years.
Yeah.
And like as a family business, I much prefer it to having to pick up a phone and phone like a business partner and try and have a quick meeting to tell them what happened in my day.
Correct.
It's so much more beneficial. I absolutely love family-run businesses, and I think they have the ability to be more successful than co-founders or partners that don't necessarily
I agree with that.
spend 24 hours a day talking about it and being their passion. Alex, generally, what is your generation bringing to this industry that you feel, and not in a bad way, but you feel isn't necessarily here yet, or is something that you can feel is going to come through over the next decade or so?
Well, I think nothing I'll tell you is what you haven't heard, I think, already, but it's, competency with technology, more comfortable with emerging technology and artificial intelligence, and just fresh ideas to the industry. I don't think there's anything that you've not heard that I can tell you about that. It's really just has to do around technology and fresh ideas. Would you agree?
Well, I agree with that, but I'm going to tell you something that's funny because you're talking about the older generation, my father, with pen and paper, carbon, writing down numbers in a calculator and having to, 700 minus 200 and multiply it.
Was 500.
Now, can you imagine?
Minus 200, 500.
Can you imagine? Imagine though, I'm starting to now introduce technology to the company and computers, and he was going crazy about that. It's slowing things down. He didn't understand why it was taking so long at the scale to input the stuff, and you're just shaking at the technology. But I don't even know how. Looking back, I don't even know how we did this with the pen and with that pen and paper.
Yeah,
I really don't. So
I totally agree.
it was just that's how they rolled back then. But
well, you say back then, I still go to many businesses and they're still rolling in a very similar way to what you're speaking of. Yeah, maybe there's pen and paper, but there's I think the next generation will be more open to considering technology, and I think that's what will drive us forward much quicker. And when I say drive us forward, I'm not just talking about let's just use technology for the sake of it, but efficiencies, right, cost savings, profitability, maximizing sales, everything that's there in technology that's going to come through is going to come through quicker because the next generation are actually looking for it. Whereas I think your dad sees it as a hindrance. You were willing to accept it, not go out looking for it, and Alex's generation is actually looking to source it. I think that's the progression.
Especially with the development of AI technology.
It's a tool. It's a tool that you have to have now to run a business. Any business, doesn't matter our industry, any industry. But I think that's another thing where father and son are aligned because both of us really embrace a lot of the new technology. Like I embrace a lot of the new technology. I want to see new stuff. You and I talk about stuff all the time. And so there isn't as much of a generation gap in terms of that discussion and topic that there would be with other things. One thing that we're really aligned with is the technology side of it all. Yeah.
If anybody was listening now and they're thinking, whether their kid is 15, 12, like Alex was, or even 20 coming out of college, if they're thinking, I think my son or my daughter should be joining this industry, should be joining either the industry or the company that I'm in, what would you want to tell them right now? This is for both of you. What would you want them to hear, whether it's pitfalls, like this is how you should do it, or work for you, things like that? Hopefully the whole conversation gives them some context, but is there anything in particular they should know?
Yeah, I would say if there's a plant or there's an office, send them in to do the most basic tasks and see if they enjoy that. If it seems like it's satisfying for them and something they enjoy doing, then they'll find other things that they enjoy doing. And I think that's the best way is really start from the ground up, get your feet wet, and with something that you latch onto and enjoy, then they'll do it naturally. And if not, they'll know right away. But you don't want to just throw them into it, I think, without that experience.
No, but I'm going to give you an example of what we always did, and this is really, I think, was a catalyst to you wanting to be in the industry and really eye-awakening, is that sometimes we protect and shield our kids from things, and we're just like, not now, you don't need to go do your sports, whatever. But I always, whenever I went on a road trip, or if I was going to visit a plant or something interesting to, they always came with me, whether it was our own operations, or a mill or somewhere else that we were going to see. And I made sure that they always came with me. So they're like, little 10 and 11-year-olds getting out of the car, putting on the safety vests and stuff like that. And I think that went a long way too for, listen, you go to school, you're in a situation where it's a finite, you're reading and learning. This is the real world. And I've always been somebody that gravitates to the real world. That's where I was most successful, even in school. Whenever we talked about something that was real world, I wanted to pass that on to them so they could experience real things. This is the real world. This isn't school. This is what business is. And that really made a big difference for them growing up.
Instead of just giving me the opposite, is there anything they shouldn't do? Don't say they shouldn't jump straight in. Don't have this conversation. Don't make them do that, whatever it might be.
I don't agree with people. Like, there's some people that say, as a school of thought, is that their children should go work in something else before they come into the business.
Yeah,
right?
I think there's a pro to that and there's a con to that.
Right.
If the opportunity presents itself, like it did for me, to go straight into it, and that was kind of
And it worked well. There's other people that, they're still finding themselves. My other son is doing something totally different. He's going on a different path, and that's what he enjoys. We're going to foster that. But I mean, I practiced law for a couple of years. Again, doing something different than the industry, it was okay for me. But I feel that for you coming into the business, not needing to go into somebody else's or doing something else before it, it's working very well, and we're very successful with our plan and path that we had for Alex.
Here's a terrible question for you, but I'm going to ask it anyway.
Race.
Let's pretend you're not Jonathan and Alex, because you're going to tell me this is impossible. But in 5 years' time, if Alex says, I actually don't want to be in scrap metal, what would you do, Jonathan?
Listen, of course I'd be disappointed because we've planned for this succession and transfer and keeping the family business under the family name and banner. But what am I going to do? I mean, it's his choice, his path.
not going to happen.
Here's the crazy thing. Do people that bring in the next succession, the next generation, have to also think, if that guy leaves, I need to have people trained underneath him in case.
Well, that
is it definitely need underneath?
100%. 100%.
You still have to have a plan. You need to have last resort plans. You need to have good structure to your company, I feel. But as for me, my passion is this business and this industry. So,
Okay, then I'm going to finish with you, Alex.
Oh.
Last question.
all right.
Sorry, John, we've done a podcast before, so let's
All right.
give Alex the mic one more
Johnny's.
time. 20 years time from now, what does your company look like? What's your role in it? And I don't mean CEO. I mean, what does your actual day look like? Just give me some context of where you guys will be.
Well, I hope to really further refine ourselves and refine our processes and the way we present ourselves even more. Like, I'm a perfectionist, and I think you can never be absolutely perfect just by the nature of the industry and the commodities we deal with and the equipment that we use, and things break and things go wrong. But I want to be as flawless as possible. So I'll be really satisfied in 20 years if that's doing itself automatically, and my focus is just on how can I grow this company without being as much focused on how can I make ourselves great operators, just as a one-man show.
Okay, because that answer isn't measurable for me, and in 20 years' time, when I'm still doing podcasts as an old man, I'm going to say, remember that time I spoke to you, Alex, and you said you were going to have an X as your company? How many yards are you going to have? What sort of volume? How many employees? How big are you guys going to be? I got to make you do
I
it.
can't
Can
comment
we take
on
the
that.
fifth? We're the United
please the
States.
fifth.
So let's
Oh,
take
come
the fifth.
on.
Let's
Please
take
the
the
fifth.
fifth.
I certainly would like to grow our company. That is my number one goal. I don't want to say
continue to grow. Continue to scale.
continue obviously, but
All right, I'll
I don't
say,
want to
okay.
pin a number.
Let's make 100.
Sure.
All right, you heard
That's
it,
right.
champ. Jonathan Ross, 20 years time, 100 yards, top 3 in Canada at the time. Alex and John,
Will we still be sitting at the same thing reviewing it
Yeah.
20 years from now, you think?
we'll be
Well,
watching.
20
We'll be
year,
watching.
20
We'll
year
be watching.
anniversary.
We'll be watching. He'll be paying all the bills.
Great.
And John and Alex, thank you so much for joining us on Born Scrappy.
Thanks for having us.
It's always great, Stu.
Thanks, guys. That's it for this episode of Born Scrappy. If you have any questions, stories, or topics you want us to dig into, send them my way. Until then, keep it scrappy.